Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to Every Day We Fight. This is the game that we're having a look at today. Now if you're not across it, I do overviews on this channel. It's where I have a look at the first 2 hours of a game. That's the Steam refund window. Steam says you can make up your mind about whether you want to keep a game or not in that time. Generally speaking, I agree as a rule and would say 20 hours in, you're probably not going to change your mind about how you felt 2 hours in. So it's a short punchy video, broad strokes info. Keep it around 10 minutes and then you can make up your mind on your own. Okay, Every Day We Fight. There's some really cool stuff in here, some moments of inspired brilliance. There's a few issues as well, but we will discuss. It's published by Hooded Horse. To me, that means I will play it no matter what. In fact, I missed a few releases recently. We might retread and have a look at those. But generally speaking, they're probably one of my favorite publishers on the block at the moment when it comes to more, let's say, cerebral strategic type games. Signal Space Lab, not really familiar. They've done a couple of pretty low profile stuff, nothing really in this genre before. What is Every Day We Fight? Ultimately, it is a roguelite, run-based, tactics type game. Think something along the lines of XCOM. Now, you don't see this very often, the roguelitification of the genre. Generally, it sits between something more like an XCOM, much more sandbox and open, and somewhere on the sliding scale towards more, let's say, focused, tighter, narrative, and even character-driven. Something like Chains of Freedom comes to mind. So this sits closer on the Chains of Freedom end of the scale. You have fixed characters, you play 3 characters, maybe there's more or something later on in the game, but for now, it is a cast of 3 curated, handcrafted characters, and it has a very heavy narrative leading, but again, it is definitely a roguelite. In fact, it outsources a lot to the roguelite model, to the point where it's a little bit of a red flag, and we've talked about this before. In case you're not across it, roguelike with a K is the original. It's the idea that you can clock the game in one run, right? The totally random run, who knows what you end up with, but it's all self-contained. It might be tough, but hypothetically, you can beat it. A roguelite is one that artificially throttles your progress to varying degrees, and it outsources like meta upgrades to your character, to the gameplay loop, la-di-da. And if you get that balance wrong, you end up with a game where you just have to grind and fail, and it has a back-to-front difficulty curve. And this sits very close up the end of the problem scale. It's hard to tell in the early going, but it's more like, let me just lay down what's going on here in case it's not clear. It's not even tagged in the Steam store at the time of this recording as roguelite or like, even though it's described as that. So people might not even realize that. Now, how does this manifest in gameplay? Because, you know, we haven't really seen a heavy roguelite version of this. And the best bad example for overdoing it I usually give is The Last Spell. There's aspects of that game that I like, but there's a great example of something that puts too much of an artificial grind and throttle on your progress, and you have to just upgrade the tree by losing runs ad infinitum. And the way that manifests in this is that it throws you up against these combat arenas which are quite brutal from the beginning. I don't mind, actually. I kind of do like it. Like I said, it's walking the line, it's threading the needle, but they throw a lot of dudes at you that hit really hard. One of the first guys is called a grenadier, and they'll have shields and armor, and if they catch you in one burst, they can just one hit you basically, and then you'll have multiple waves of these dudes in one fight and have to complete it. So it's brutal, but like I said, it's really teetering on this line of less that it's brutal because it's difficulty and challenging based, and more that it's unfair and designed to make you smash against it, grind against it, level your guys up against the fail condition until you finally overcome it. And your tolerance is going to vary depending. Now look, I don't want to bash it whole cloth. It's got some really interesting gameplay innovation in here. It's doing an ADS to shoot style thing that I can only really think of Phoenix Point as a close cousin. It's a little frustrating because you toggle it on with right click, and I think most gamers, we've all grown up playing shooters to some varying degree. It's difficult not to press the right click accidentally to try an ADS. It's sort of a muscle memory condition thing I think most will struggle to break. And this can be a bit of a pain in the bum if you set up something like an Overwatch condition and the enemy triggers it, and in that moment while he's slow-mo shooting and you've only got seconds to get the shot off, often I would accidentally muscle memory hit right click to try and ADS, and that would just cancel the entire opportunity, which was the difference between winning and losing a fight often. So that's frustrating, perhaps worth a remap. But at the same time, the developers can't live in such a bubble that they don't realize this is going to be a common problem for just about anyone that's ever played video games. But on the scrabbling, on the moving, it might be the best thing that this game brings to the table is, I think it's called Scrabble. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's this sort of reactive evasion, and there's twofold. One, it's really cool, but two, it uses up a currency in this game. I don't know if it even shows it, but it's hidden and you figure it out that you have this reaction point. You have AP points that you use to move and all that. This is normal stuff, but you have a reaction point. And as long as you have a reaction point free, and I think each dude has one, they probably get more as they level up, you can react to enemy fire in a sort of defensive Overwatch situation. So like if a guy's about to shoot at your guy because he ran a flank, you can do the Scrabble thing to try and run behind cover. Now it plays out in this very short, like 3-second block of real time. So you still have to anticipate that this guy's going to start firing the bullets within a second, probably, if he's looking straight at you. So if you try and Scrabble across cover 10 feet, you're probably going to get hosed across it, but you can try and hook around a corner. And in practice, it's incredibly cool. The enemy gets it as well, which ties back to what I was saying, like Overwatch and shooting. Once you start shooting an enemy and land the first bullet, they will generally start to Scrabble, and then you sort of panic trying to get more bullets on or hold down for full auto, and it brings a very welcome sort of frantic energy to something that's generally quite static. Like, this is a huge innovation and I really like it, and it marries well with the ADS component because, again, I was critical of the ADS in Phoenix Point. It is a bit gimmicky. Some people will defend it, and you should go back to that. I don't want to turn it into a Phoenix Point review, but that was the idea about having an actual projectile system inserted to combat the 95% chance to hit that some people don't comprehend and grasp about XCOM being a turn-based, stat-based game. So here it works infinitely well because the whole system's built around it, as opposed to creating it as a reactionary mechanic. Anyway, I said the twofold for the Scrabbling. The second component is that it uses up the same reaction point that an Overwatch would use up. And look, Overwatch in these sort of games is often abused or a bit of a must-have. Even in like the first XCOM, I think most people will really, really leverage the Overwatch ability because it's so strong. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you is the best question, because how do you answer that? How do you fix that? And the best way to do that is introduce a mechanic that's actually better than Overwatch. So if you use Overwatch in this, you're giving up your reaction points. So yeah, okay, you can lock down an enemy line or whatever, but if they avoid your cone, which they'll try to do, and if they get an angle on your dude and shoot him and mag dump him, he won't be able to Scrabble because he used that reaction point in the Overwatch. It's so incredibly clever and refreshing, and I find myself using Overwatch very scarcely and in very important situations. Maybe I've got a sniper in depth with a very cool long corridor and flanks are protected by the other characters, right? Instead of Overwatch being a 95% of the time must use, now it's sort of a very situational 30% of the time. I would rather keep the Scrabble in reserve because they send so many dudes at you, you really need it. So yeah, that moment-to-moment gameplay of this game, arguably the core of it, is really good. And even though I dislike that they've heavily outsourced the meta progression, arguably too much, it gets away with it a bit because the loop is so solid. Anyway, we'll start winding up. I will say it's technically a period piece in World War II. I don't know why, other than why not? Like, stylistically, it brings nothing really specific to the table. It's a pretty simple indie graphics thing going on, but something like Lamplighters League jumps to mind. Now, obviously a different time, pulp inspired, but if you want to go like a period piece because you enjoy the flavor of the setting, there's a perfect example of how to do it, and this game is doing none of that. And, more, I suppose, contemporary, you've got things like Classified France 44. I love that game, and that's a World War II XCOM-like type, so there's a lot in common. And, that in the World War II setting is supported by the narrative, is supported by things like escalating Wehrmacht into Gestapo type enemies. So again, that makes more sense. Now, the story may bear fruit as time goes on. It's sort of a time loop Groundhog Day, but not really. It's more about multiple timelines, which I kind of hate. Timelines are such a lazy get out of jail what if scenario, and time travel can be much more interesting. So in this, it seems to be more like every time you die, you jump to a different alternate universe. It kind of removes any stakes from the equation. But again, who knows where the story's going? It might turn out to be 10 out of 10 game story of the year. I feel like you kind of set yourself up a little bit when you go down the multiple timelines thread. I mean, look what it did to the Marvel Universe. And look, just closing thought as well, because the 3 characters are written and curated, you know, they're not XCOM random type people, it's important to get the writing right. Tragically, and I'm not trying to hide this at the end, I just wanted to cover all the mechanics first, I think the characters are terrible and infuriatingly written. At first, I thought maybe it was just the chick, but that was just how the dialogue happened to wind out in the beginning. The more I played it, the more I realized that there is this writing bias from their writing team that permeates and infects all 3 characters, where they're incredibly snarky, sardonic, kind of mean-spirited. They're bantering with each other, but in no way does it convey charisma. It makes me hate them all, the way that they talk to each other. They're mean to each other. They're cranky and cruel and poking, and don't get me wrong, I'm all about saying bad words with the boys and fucking around on the back channels, right? That's not what this is. It is, in a nutshell, just badly written character dialogue and banter, and there's so much of it, and you're walking around the city from point to point, and they'll just start prattling on about insert talking point here to fill the space, and it's just really low tier stuff, and it drove me nuts. It made me want to mute them. So yeah, look, ultimately, glimmers of a really cool, interesting loop in here. The scramble mechanic is one of the best innovations I've ever seen in this space. And one of those things, you know, now that I've seen it, I would hope to and expect to see it in other games going forward. So yeah, some 10 out of 10 gameplay innovation, but there are also some pretty weak parts, and I really do wonder how the meta loop is going to go on, because the idea of just throw way too many guys at the player so as to kill them, so they have to keep grinding on the exact same encounter 5 times to out-level it to bully through it, does not really make for a loop that makes a player want to just do it again after getting their head smashed kind of unfairly. So yeah, obviously a little bit mixed, but you know, there it is, the pros and cons. Every Day We Fight, check it out. It should be out around about the time this video goes up. Might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.